Okay, I need to tell you, it was worth falling and going into rehab to come home again. But I am going to talk about the rehab because I'm going back to them. Not because I'm hurt, but because they are such wonderful people. And I'm going back as a volunteer. I'm going to have my first class there on January 7th, which is going to be a Friday from 2:30 until 3:30. And I'm going to talk. But first, I want to tell you what it was like to come home. You all know, and if you don't know, I'll tell you. I had a long and wonderful marriage with Eric, who survived concentration camp. And there is one treasure that I have that he gave me and that I keep in a drawer in a plastic bag. And that's the hat he had to wear in Dachau concentration camp. And I came home and I picked it up and I cried and said, Eric, we're home again. We're home again, and I'm home with you. He became an amazing person. When he left the camps, he was filled with so much rage. And what he said to me was, if you marry me, if you say yes, know that I have no family to give you. They're all dead. Only one uncle survived. And there are parts of my life I could never speak about that have to be a closed book. Would that be possible for you to live with? And I said yes. And what was hidden, the part he couldn't talk about, one of the things was the rage he carried. He carried an enormous rage. And we would drive along. He was always the driver. I never enjoyed driving. He loved it. And he would say, did you see that son of a cutting in front of that car? Let's go get him. And I would say, Eric. And he'd say, okay. And he got rid of the rage when he began to be a volunteer. He became a volunteer in the prison system. And the reason he was so good at it was the prisoners sensed that rage that he had in him because they had it too. You see, when we imprison people, it's not to make them become better citizens. It's to make them feel bad. We put them into solitary, where all the pain they've experienced magnifies. And when we send them out, it's with hate towards everybody. People don't end up in the prison system unless they've been wounded. I worked at the Fortune Society for so many years as a volunteer, also at Sing Sing, together with Eric. And I saw the rage leaving him as he was able to use the hurt that he had to heal others. And so I'm going back to Park Avenue Rehab Extension to be a volunteer. And I want to talk about that because I'm going to change the world in tiny ways, which is all I'm able to do. But each tiny way can help somebody. You see, this is going to be my new cause. When somebody has been wounded, either physically or mentally, the worst thing for them is to sit with idle hands and not be needed. Eric became who he was because he was needed. And I would like any thoughts, because now there is COVID and I can't go back as a volunteer yet because I don't know what germs I carry. The tragedy of COVID is it is we who are dangerous. And this is why I'm vaccinated. I don't want to endanger you. The people who say, it's my body, I can decide what to do. Sure, but don't hurt me with it. Don't hurt your family with it. Don't hurt a stranger walking in the street with it. I'm not preaching, I'm just deciding that I owe a lot to the world because I survived. And what I'm going to ask all of you is to think. You can't go to the nursing homes either. But in all those places, people sit like this. These are people who've washed dishes, who've cooked meals, who've diapered babies, who wrote books, who taught school, who went to school, who cleaned streets, who repaired cars, and suddenly they were wounded. And all we're told to do is, I'll give you Band-Aids, I'll give you medication, but don't use your hands. Don't be useful. My grandchild, Jesse, I've always asked him for information when I worked in the prison system. And I always got it. He wrote this. They have to find what they can be useful for. Go to people. The people who sit in the nursing homes and in the rehab centers, who sit like this, and ask them, what can they be used for? Could they knit a sweater for a child? Could they write a letter to somebody who cannot get out? Could they make a phone call to somebody? But do not let us be useless. Do not forbid us to belong to the human race. When we sit like this, we've stopped believing. Because we're not needed. Need us. I'm going back as a volunteer. I can teach drawing. But there are so many immigrants here who cannot speak English. And if you're just learning, teach them. This is called a chair. Write it down. Let them do the further investigation. But I'm begging you, don't waste human beings. Don't be this. Let me go further. Jesse wrote to me that I should talk about that concentration camp had. I would like to. When I once said to Eric, how can you do so many things? You're amazing. Because he was. He decided he always wanted to build a house. So I went with him as we went to any construction site. And he would say to people, how do you begin? How do you mix cement? How do you get the whatever the words are for the armature? That's what you use for sculpture. But a house has an armature.
Yeah.
There must be a different word. And he said, It's very simple, because I figured out if I'm not useful to the Nazis, then they'll let me die. And he said, I damn well will not let them kill me. I will not let them win. Don't let the people who hurt you win. Don't become this. I would like any comments on that topic. I would like to hear from you how you did not let somebody win.
So if anybody wants to share their stories about standing up for your worth in the presence of messaging that tells you you're not worth it, you're not important, you're not valuable, please write them down. And Mom, should I read the comments to you?
Yes. And then I want to show the drawings of the people.
Oh my God, yes. Okay, Fran Rosenberg is watching and says that she can hear, and her Nan is watching, and Carol Hodkin and Greg, and everyone is saying they can hear you just fine, and
Perfect.
Eileen Cutler is saying hello, and Janine is saying, Hedy, I love you, and Eileen says, only Hedy would say it was worth falling. Ha, we get it. And Laura Silver is watching, and Tammy Smith, who says, hello, Hedy. And Eileen says, so glad that Jesse suggested you speak about the hat. And Sandy is watching and says, evening, Aunt Hedy, love from Ismail and Sandy.
Okay, I must tell you something wonderful that happened. Ishmael, now in all these conflicts throughout the world, Ishmael, who is my niece's husband, but he's more than that for me. He's a treasure, because he was teaching music in the Jordanian camps of orphans. And this is what I mean. Be important to the world. Whatever skills you have, bless you, Kitty. Again, I can give you tissues.
Sorry, everyone.
Okay, I want to go to this now. I want to tell you about the people I was drawing. First of all, I'm going to teach drawing, but I would like to figure out a way, and maybe any of you skilled people could figure out a way that I could show those classes to my Monday night program, because I have to tell you this in detail. When I went to work, some of you may know this, I did speak about it, but those who don't, when I called the Red Cross to ask if I could teach children drawing, children who have nothing, I wasn't going to teach children whose parents could afford to come to me. And they said, we don't work with children, but for the first time ever, there's an opening in the women's section of the Nassau County Jail. I may have said it before, let me just say it once more. Because all they could do, if they had good behavior, they could work in the kitchen. Well, what I learned during that time, I'll tell you another time. I did say it already. But get used to hearing things twice, because I don't want to write notes. And so if I forget me. Mm-hmm. But let me go to this.
But let me just say, Tammy Smith said something. Should I share what she
I'd
wrote?
love it.
Tammy wrote, when the Army told me, let me just pull this up. When the Army told me that I would get kicked out if they discovered I was gay, I never let it take my dignity. I knew that the Army had no idea who I was. I was a stereotype, a bad stereotype that didn't reflect who I really was. I won because many who cared about people like me spoke up.
And I need you to know that she is a general, a lieutenant general, And one of the greatest inspirations are she and her husband, wife. One person can make such a difference, even though there were two of them. Tammy, thank you for speaking up. Okay. I'm only going to give first names because the world has changed so that...
But Mom, I just want to say it's wife, not husband, wife. It's just wife. Her wife, not husband, wife. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. This is Charlie. He sits like the rest of this generation with a cell phone in one hand. He has a wounded leg. Can you see him well? Mm-hmm. And look at his eyes. They are highly intelligent eyes. And I approached him and asked if I should draw him because of his eyes. And what I found out, by the way, he's going to be in this painting. This painting, I knew when I would go into rehab, because I'd been there before when I had a stroke 4 years ago, and I had spoken to the people there, and I knew anybody in that rehab, anybody who chooses to work with hurt people belongs in here. So as you see this painting coming to life, which now that I'm home, I have the correct place in which to paint. I've never done a canvas of this uncomfortable size before, but I needed it to be huge. Okay? My wonderful Linda and Farah, who were my OT and PT counselors, on a sunny day they took me out to the flea market. And once you discover a pencil can always be with you, you need to draw wherever you are. Okay? Now this, when it's finished, is going to be my gift to Jessie, because I saw it from a window and I have to finish it because Follow Your Art was here. Follow Your Art was in this corner, and I would pick up Jesse when he was a tiny kid, a toddler, at Magnolia, which is around the corner, and I would put him in his stroller and walk him over to Follow Your Art, where 2 dogs would be waiting for him. And his grandfather, Eric, and Luis Toca, and Nazario, who were the best workers we ever had, except for Leon Mack, who was just as good.
Let me tell you that Sandy said, Ismail is so moved about your comments about him. He loves you so much. Love you, Sandy. And Eileen said, oh my God, this painting, beautiful. And then she said, that drawing. And then Janine said, I love this drawing. It's amazing.
Now comes the really amazing. This is Emmanuel. Emmanuel comes from Nigeria. He's a physical therapist. And I have to talk about Nigeria. Look at this. Know that I asked him, why am I getting such highly skilled people? And they all come from Nigeria. And he said, because we are taught to respect learning. And then comes the origin of my learning. about Nigeria. This is Dr. O.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. O is a serious story by itself. When I first got there to the rehab, this very tall, big man sat down on the side of the bed, and I just knew I needed him in this painting. He is very, very dark brown, and he's very tall, so this white coat was huge. And I said to him, because I am a refugee, I'm one of the Hitler refugees who made it to Panama and whose life was saved. But when I came to America and I saw the segregation, I always wondered, how did they survive the hate here? And since so much of that has been not eradicated, but understood, all I said to him was, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Nigeria." And I said, "How? How did you do it?" And I believe I told this already. I'm going to tell it again. He got up, he stood there in front of my bed, and he said, when I saw my first patient, she said, "I am waiting for the doctor." And he said, "I am the doctor. I am the only doctor." And I knew I needed him in this painting. And I knew I would have to put him like a mountain or a rock. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Dr. O, could I ever speak to you and ask you questions?" And he said, "Not now, because I have work to do, but we'll find a time." And the next time I walked by the desks where the doctor sat, he said, "I could do it now, come sit." And he moved a chair for me. And I know I've said it before, but this is important, so I'll speak it again. And I said, "How did you do it?" And he said, "First you have to know who you are. And then you have to go to where they are and understand where it comes from." I'm going to speak of bits and pieces quite often. Get used to it. Mm-hmm. Grandparents do that. When you get to be 92 and 4 months mm-hmm. extra, you repeat stories because they stay within you. Mm. And I said to him, "But in the painting you're going to stand." He said, "Do you want to take a photograph?" I said, "No, I don't want to work from a photograph anymore. Stand for a minute. I just want to get the feeling of how you stand." I don't know if you can see this very well. But it'll be in the painting. And then there's this darling girl. Her name is Amanda. Only the first name. Oh, yeah, I shouldn't show it.
You could show it, but don't tell the story.
Oh,
yeah.
I won't.
Yeah. You could say where you know her from, but that's all you should say, probably, yes.
Okay. Now, when I showed you Emmanuel, the therapist, I said, "Do me a favor. Write down what you have to say, because Eric had said to me, Hedy, don't ever paint another person into any of your work unless they tell you how they see themselves. Because we're doing a documentary of greatness. Can you read what he said? Also from Nigeria.
Oh, I have to be the best in every aspect that I can to make me valuable. Echoya Edobar.
And that's exactly what Eric said about how he survived. Okay, then now I'm just going to show you finished ones. Which,
and should I just tell you some of the things that people said?
Yes.
Tammy Smith said, we are taught to respect learning. I wish that we could strengthen that message here in the U.S. And Mary is watching. And Eileen says, I love that story about Dr. O. It says so much.
Yes, it does. And in this painting, everybody's quotes will be put there. And now I want to show you. This is a receptionist. Only the first names. But she is a delight. She makes people feel at home. This is why I'm going back. I would like to take all these people to stay in my life. So I'm going to be a volunteer. And if anybody is able to figure out if I could somehow broadcast the teaching. And then, this is my friend Mary. And Linda told me how to convince her to get her power back. She's one of those who must not have to sit like this. And she will decide how to get her power back.
I just want to show her hands. Yeah.
Her hands, yes. They must not be allowed to sit with their hands like that. Mm-hmm. They must be given something worthy of them. And here is my other.
And Eileen says you capture their essence in your drawings. Beautiful.
I know, because I know them so well.
Mm.
And this is Michael. Also from the same country as Dr. O. The reason I'm drawing them before I paint them in here is I wanted to know them. In here. And there's one more left. Oops. Ilana is somebody from whom I have learned so much. Ilana is the social worker. Ilana sits with the phone and the computer and a line of people waiting to see her. She is friendly to each one. She is warm and loving, and I love her, and she says, would you forgive me, but I have this line of people waiting. And yet she's friendly to all of us.
And Eileen says, you've done so much work since you got there.
Yeah.
You capture their essence in your drawings. Beautiful portraits.
Is there time to explain something about
Briefly,
that?
because it's 7:30 now.
No, then there's no time. Next week.
Okay. Any last closing reflections?
Yes, I'm going back. And all of you, don't be this. Don't sit while others work. Don't be the only one who is pitiful. show your power.
And the last comment, Eileen Brown-Batten says, Hedy, from now on I will see hands with new eyes, because you make a very good point. The hands tell the story of how the person is doing.
Yes.
Okay.
I love you all. See you next Monday.